A new legislative session starts in Juneau tomorrow and with a new administration.
Indigenous activists are extending an invitation to Alaska's new governor, Mike Dunleavy, to talk about native language and education policy following some controversial comments Dunleavy made on the campaign trail. Now, Dunleavy has since walked back those statements, but Alaska Native organizations say they see this as an opportunity to educate all Alaskans and the governor on the painful history behind past legislation.
The video began circulating on social media shortly before his election. At a campaign event last fall, now Governor Mike Dunleavy made a strong statement about language in Alaska.
English is our language, and yes, that would be a way to make English Alaska's official language. It should be. We have a number of native languages in the state of Alaska, which I think we should respect, but the language that we all communicate with is English, and English should be our language as a state.
English already is one of the state's official languages. In 2014, the legislature passed a bill recognizing Alaska's 20 native languages as official too. Dunleavy and now Lieutenant Governor Kevin Meyer were both serving in the Senate at the time, and they both voted in favor of the measure. Fast forward to that same campaign event last fall, and here's Meyer.
Before these people send their kids to our school that we pay for, they need to learn and promote learning English before you send your kid to our school, because we shouldn't have to have a teacher hired just to help the 2 or 3 kids who haven't learned the English language yet. So that should be a requirement, and yes, this is an English-speaking state.
English has never been the primary language.
Kendra Kloster is executive director of Native People's Action. She says she doesn't know where these comments are coming from, but they've now become part of a larger conversation in the Indigenous community, one she hopes to continue with Dunleavy and Meyer.
I would like to have those conversations on, what we can do to really uplift our languages and what we can do to uplift our education system.
Especially in light of this exchange.
Do you think that some of the villages will have to go to more regional high schools and things like that as the costs increase for having all these small schools around the state?
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the end result in your hubs like Barrow, Kotzebue, Nome, Bethel.
It sounded like talking about the inevitability of our school system needing to move to regional boarding schools. I think that opens an important conversation about understanding what the history of boarding schools has been in our state. It's unfortunately an era that not many Alaskans are deeply familiar with.
That era dates back to the 1930s and 40s with the creation of large boarding schools run by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. According to research by the University of Alaska Anchorage, boys and girls as young as 5 were taken from their homes and sent away. At regional boarding schools, they were forced to shower with bars of lye soap, and matrons scrubbed their skin forcefully. Some children were referred to only by their assigned number, and they were punished for speaking their native languages. Some were spanked, whipped with belts, cat-o'-nine-tails, or had their knuckles wrapped by nightsticks and rulers.
This is history that lives and breathes with us today.
Today, she says Alaska needs to talk about that history.
Make space for all Alaskans to better understand that era and the ramifications that we still feel today, and that our people who are most impacted by decisions like moving to regional boarding schools are the ones who are leading those conversations.
Conversations Indigenous organizations around Alaska are already having about language and education, ones they say they'd like to have with the new administration.
A spokesperson for Governor Dunleavy tells us that the governor was referring to English as the state's administrative language in his previous statement that you just heard. And as for the governor's comment about regional high schools, a spokesperson referred us to this statement Dunleavy made during his inauguration speech last month.
During my campaign, there was a misunderstanding that I had said something about closing schools in rural Alaska. Nothing could be further from the truth. My kids went to schools in rural Alaska. My wife went to school in rural Alaska. I taught in rural Alaska. If anything, I want to strengthen the educational system in rural Alaska.
The 2019 legislative session begins tomorrow in Juneau. The Alaska Senate will gavel in at 11 a.m. The House convenes at 1 p.m.